I didn't gangbang, but choosing to live a street lifestyle that led me into prison, you have no option but to understand gangbanging. That's the environment that you're in. You got to adopt and adapt into that culture. So in prison, you can be a neutron. That means you have nothing to do with any nation, with any set. But you know who bangs. You know, you can tell with who hangs out with who, how they shake up. You can see the gang meetings. It's a part of your everyday life. For survival purposes, you have to be aware. You have to be observant of what's going on around you. Whenever somebody gets stabbed in the dorm or there's a huge fight on the rec yard, you hear what's going on, and you need to have your ear to the street, to the pound, just so you can navigate your way safely throughout your bid, even if you have nothing to do with it. So in prison, gangbanging is an everyday part of life, even when you yourself have nothing to do with it. In prison, there can be like different conflict and, wars between different nations. But from my experience, I think I've seen the most violence and the most conflict within a specific nation, within a specific set. It wasn't, like the Bloods versus the Crips. And of course, that stuff happens all the time. But a lot of times it would be within a specific nation. It would be within a specific set. And the differences of sets and whatever disagreement there would be, that's where the most conflict would come from. And at this time that I'm specifically recalling and thinking about, it was Bloods. There was some disagreement and politics that was going on that I had no idea about. Of course, I had a lot of friends who were actively gangbanging in that set. You get to see with their movements, them being just private with their affairs, keeping everything to themselves. But it just popped off one day, man. 6, 7 people in the day room fighting, stabbing. All of them go to jail. And in prison, you can just feel tension, not just in the dorm, but just on the compound. And that's why a lot of times administration will lock down the pound, because even the administration knows something's about to pop off. Whether someone goes to confinement and then make a statement, they tell, or there's people on the compound who have nothing to do with any of the business, they snitch for whatever reason. Or just the administration not being green, not being ignorant, knowing that something's brewing. And you can just feel the tension in the dorm and on the compound. Everybody knows there's something's going on and that something serious is about to pop off. About 6 or 7 people in the day room, all fighting, knives, people getting stabbed, and it's all from the same set. Different sets, but under the same nation. And there's a disagreement, something going on with money, a specific route. I'm not sure the details. They were going to war. And it wasn't just one incident that was going to be resolved. Especially because I think one of the guys got hit pretty bad, got bayflied, and had to get sent from the compound and go to the hospital. So it was popping off. And at this specific prison, you had the north side Chow Hall and you had the south side of the Chow Hall. And for the most part, one specific shift. In prison, you always got 2 different shifts that run the pound. You got like the shift, the administration that actually is like concerned and aware of the matters of the inmate population. And then you got the other shift, the other side of administration doesn't care about anything. And whenever they're on, like whenever they're running the security and the everyday affairs of the prison, anything goes. So that's when people will normally wait to do their dirt, to go slide to different dorms, if they're planning a big play, a big route with drugs coming in or violence or whatever it is. So this one specific shift that cared about the matters on the compound, they wouldn't feed the inmate population on the south side of the Chow Hall. And the reason why is because the way the Chow Hall was set up, you had the long mile, all the dorms on the compound are here, and you have this long mile to where the dorms are let out one by one, and for security purposes, you gotta walk in a straight line in between the yellow lines to the Chow Hall. So the north side of the Chow Hall is over here. So the security, the officers can see this side of the Chow Hall much easier. Of course, they got police, the officers standing in different places in the Chow Hall, outside of the Chow Hall. But it's easier to observe, it's easier to secure the inmate population from this side. But then the south side of the Chow Hall, you have to go around the building and go into the Chow Hall around the back. And that's where it goes down at. I can't even count the amount of stabbings that took place on the south side of the Chow Hall. And the reason why is because security would never place officers over there. And honestly, to this day, I don't know why. I think it's just because it was more the backside of the pound. They couldn't see. They didn't have like a post out there. But maybe obviously too, man, I'm sure maybe even the officers were scared themselves to be put at post there when it comes to the backside of the Chow Hall. So a lot of times, man, whenever you would go to Chow and you would see a whole bunch of people just mobbed up on the south side of the Chow Hall, waiting outside the Chow Hall, and you could just feel the tension in the air. Like these people are waiting for somebody for a reason. That's where a lot of fights would break out. People would get jumped, and that's where a lot of stabbings would take place as well. So all this is going on at the same time to where this specific nation, in between sets, they're having a big conflict. They're at war. A big situation already popped off in the dorm, and there's this buzz and rumors throughout the compound going around that it's going to continue to escalate. Because if one guy got bay-flighted from a helicopter, got shipped off the compound, went to the hospital, and they weren't letting it go. It's going to continue to escalate. So one day it was the bad shift that was on the pound, the shift that didn't care about anything. So rather than them feeding just on the north side of the Chow Hall, which the good shift did, this shift fed on both sides of the Chow Hall. So a lot of people, man, especially people who didn't gangbang or had nothing to do with conflict, or just for the most part, people in general, would try to avoid the south side of the Chow Hall just because they know it's liable to go down on that side because, there's no security over there. But also, too, you really don't have an option when you go eat because the police will watch and they'll tell you to get in line or break off and go this way or break off and go that way. So they let our dorm out to go to Chow. And once again, whenever there's chaos and there's conflict and there's drama or there's a war going on the prison compound, man, you can cut the tension in the air with a knife. I mean, you can just feel it. You can feel it in the dorm. You can feel it on the pound. There's not much playing and friendly stuff going on. You just know that everybody's just kind of on edge, just waiting for something to pop off. Everybody's looking out for themselves. And once again, too, this isn't just a small set. This is the biggest gang on the compound who runs the pound. And there's a mass load of people from both sets within that nation that are going to war. So it's a big deal and everybody can feel it. So they let us out to go to Chow, and as we're walking, going to the Chow Hall, of course, my dorm, which a lot of the members are in my dorm, but one of the main guys who was from the rival set is in my dorm, who was in the middle of the conflict. So they have our line break off and go to the south side. Once again, there's people talking, of course, but man, you can just feel the tension, man, and you can just feel it in the air. And as we begin to walk around the side of the Chow Hall, you just see a whole bunch of people just standing. People are walking past them, of course, going inside, but it's common too. It's not like that's something rare. There's always people hanging out on the south side of the Chow Hall whenever they feed on that side. People are trying to see their homies from other dorms or whatever. But this time, man, there's about 9 to 10 people just posted up, just hanging. And they're just sitting on the wall. They ain't saying nothing to nobody. They're just posted. So there is a guy in the Chow Hall who is assigned to be, cleaning the tables in the Chow Hall. And as he's walking around, cleaning the tables, you can see that he's not even doing his job. I remember whenever I first came in the Chow Hall, that's the first thing I noticed was this guy who is high rank in this specific set who's at war. He's the one who's wiping down the tables. And as he's wiping down the tables, he keeps looking out the window. he's just looking at the chow hall window. He's looking for somebody. Now his brothers are the ones who are posted up on the side of the chow hall like this. So he's waiting for the other guy from the rival set to let them know when he's coming. I don't know what's going on specifically at that time, but after everything popped off, you could tell that's what the play was. So he's wiping the tables, but he's not even really worried about the tables. He keeps looking out the window. He keeps looking out the window. So whenever he's seen the other guy, he came and let the other guys know out the window, dun, 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 he's coming. So while I'm walking into the chow hall, not really putting everything together, I see the guy looking out the window. Obviously, we know something's about to pop off. Everybody's out there waiting, but we still really don't know what. And all of a sudden, you just hear screaming, ah, ah, and hear tussling. And you just look out the window and you see a whole mass load of people, just fighting. And, you really can't see much because you're inside the chow, but you can see it out the window. And you can see fighting and you can hear screaming. And all of a sudden, you just see a dude running past all of us, running up the line, and blood pouring out, gushing all down his face. And he's just running, screaming, ah! And he's just trying to get in front of the police, just so the police can get him and take him to confinement and he can be safe. So what happened when the guy was walking around the chow hall, man, they jump on top of him, they hit him with a knife a whole bunch of times, and they're just cutting his face wide open. His face is gashed wide open. This is just everyday life in prison. And not even being active in gangbanging, having nothing to do with any of the conflict. This is a part of the lifestyle of being in prison that you have to not only deal with, but you have to observe, you have to be aware, and you have to be intentional about knowing who's who, knowing where you're going, knowing what's going on around you for the purpose of not only your safety and survival, but also as well, man, how to navigate through, whatever prison dorm or prison that you're at for your best interest.